I know the feeling. You scroll through a sea of glossy photos, read a handful of hype-filled bullet points, and the subwoofer you pick looks like it'll turn your living room into a private cinema. Then the box arrives, you hook it up, and the bass feels thin, the volume knobs seem disconnected, or the unit just sits there taking up space without delivering the rumble you expected. That frustration is why I'm doing this deep dive, to help you avoid the looks good but does nothing trap before you spend a chunk of cash on a piece of audio gear. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. The Definitive Technology Descend DN12 is the brand's flagship floor-standing sub for 2021, promising a blend of power and precision with its dual 12-inch radiators, a 3XR arc design, and a 1500-watt peak Class H amplifier. Those are the headline claims, but the real question is how that translates into everyday movie nights, gaming sessions, and music listening in a typical home theater setup. I spent a few weeks integrating the DN12 into a mid-size media room about 15 feet by 12 feet, with a 4K speaker array and a 7.1-channel receiver, and I'm going to walk you through what actually mattered once the box was opened. First off, the DN12 isn't a plug-and-play monster. The unit comes with a built-in volume knob, low-pass filter selector, and phase control, which sounds convenient until you realize you have to tune those settings to match the rest of your system. The intelligent phase control claims to let the sub sync with any speaker layout, but in practice you'll still need to spend a few minutes adjusting the phase dial while playing a test tone or a familiar movie soundtrack. If you're comfortable with a bit of trial and error, that's fine. If you expect the sub to auto-calibrate, you'll be disappointed. One of the strengths that became obvious right away was the way the dual 12-inch radiators interact with the new 3XR arc chassis. The design allows the bass to radiate both forward and upward, which helps fill a room without needing to be tucked into a corner. In my setup, I placed the DN12 about 3 feet from the front wall, slightly off-center, and the low frequencies still felt tight and enveloping. When a deep explosion hit on a superhero film, the bass was punchy without turning the whole room into a shaking box. That's a practical advantage for people who don't have a dedicated corner subspot or who want a more balanced soundstage. However, the power comes with a hidden trade-off: heat. The 1500-watt peak Class H amplifier can sustain high output for extended periods, but the rear vent panel gets noticeably warm after a marathon of action movies or a long gaming session. The unit's exterior stays cool enough to touch, but you'll hear a faint fan hum if you sit directly behind it. In a small apartment where the sub sits against a wall, that noise can become a mild annoyance, especially at lower volumes where the hum is proportionally louder. Connectivity is another area where the DN12 shines for most home theater enthusiasts. The rear panel offers both line-level RCA inputs and a high-level speaker-level input, meaning you can feed it directly from a receiver's sub-out or from a speaker's output if your amp doesn't have a dedicated sub-channel. I used the line-level input from my AVR, which gave me clean control over the crossover frequency. The built-in low-pass filter selector lets you choose between 60 Hz, 80 Hz, and 100 Hz settings, letting you fine-tune the sub to the size of your room and the response of your main speakers. If you're a casual listener who only plugs the sub into a TV's audio out, you'll still be able to use the high-level input, but you'll lose the precision of the crossover control. Now, who should consider the DN12? If you already have a decent speaker system and you're looking for a single, floor-standing sub that can handle both movie explosions and musical low-end without needing a separate sub-cabinet, the DN12 is a solid match. Its dual radiators give it a broader bandwidth than many single-driver subs in the same price range, and the phase control helps integrate it with speakers that are placed in unconventional locations, like bookshelf speakers mounted on a wall. The sub also works well for gamers who want tactile feedback for explosions and engine rumble, because the upward-firing design adds a sense of immersion without overwhelming the room. On the flip side, the DN12 isn't the best pick for a few specific scenarios. First, if you live in a tight studio apartment and you need a sub that can sit flush against a wall with minimal vibration, the DN12 size and vented rear can transmit more structural bass into adjoining rooms than a sealed, compact sub would. Second, if you're on a strict budget, there are smaller, sealed subs that can deliver respectable bass for a fraction of the price, albeit without the same level of detail in the low-mid range. Finally, if you prefer a sub that's completely silent when idle, the fan noise under heavy load